Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I think she was hiking, but she did have snowshoes and microspikes, so she was definitely on the hike.
A tragic end to the search for a missing Ontario woman on the North Shore Mountains. Also,
no one ever held that man accountable.
The Surrey Food Bank accused of failing to protect workers after an alleged sexual assault. And
it's going to affect me and a lot of people.
A protest in Pemberton after Scotiabank announces it's closing its doors after more than 60 years.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. And we begin tonight with the tragic end to the search for a young woman missing on the North Shore Mountains. Our Dan Burrett is here live with more on this. And Dan, this woman went missing yesterday?
Yes, Mike. The 21-year-old woman is from Ontario, identified on social media as Nikki Donnelly. North Shore Rescue says she did not return from a solo trip to St. Mark's Summit in Cypress Provincial Park yesterday. The team says she phoned her boyfriend in Toronto when she reached the summit and again on her way down. Then she called to say she was lost and the call dropped. She did not call 911. Crews were called around 5 p.m. yesterday. They searched all night with helicopters and night vision goggles, but they couldn't find her. That's a video that Donnelly shot while on the summit. North Shore Rescue went in again at first light this morning, searching for tracks, but a lot of snow and wind and rain had fallen overnight. Team leaders say Donnelly was likely unprepared to spend the night on the mountain, but she did have some equipment.
She did have snowshoes and microspikes, so she was definitely on the hike. And she did reach St. Mark's. She sent a photo to her boyfriend of her on the top of St. Mark's. So it was on her way down that she was she'd lost her way.
This afternoon, Squamish RCMP announced crews found her just before 11 a.m. in a steep drainage area on the east side of the Howe Sound Crest Trail, just below St. Mark's Summit. They flew her back to the base, and she died. Police urge anyone who needs help in the backcountry to call 911, and search teams will do whatever they can to find them. Mounties and the coroner will now try to figure out how the young woman died. Mike.
Very sad. Thanks, Dan. A former employee of the Surrey Food Bank is sounding the alarm tonight about what she considers a risk to the safety of female staff at the nonprofit organization. The 25-year-old student alleges she was sexually harassed and sexually assaulted by an older male co-worker. As Belle Puri of CBC's Impact Team reports, the woman wants the food bank to acknowledge it handled the matter poorly.
No one ever held that man accountable.
The first exchange happened on the first day at the food bank.
He just came in and was extra friendly and was like, hey, I heard there's a new pretty volunteer. I just wanted to say hi.
An innocent welcome? Perhaps, but the older male co-worker's flirting quickly ramped up. Despite assurances from Surrey Food Bank management that it had dealt with it, Janica Izzard says the behavior continued.
We did find that in the initial complaint there was a harassment because of a certain comment that was made, and there is a formal reprimand on his file.
Over 9 months as Izzard moved from volunteer to temporary employee, she says the longtime worker moved from untoward comments to unwelcome physical advances.
And then he came to a different area of the warehouse and started rubbing my back and touching me and saying, oh, I'm just drawing pictures on your back. And I was like, leave me alone.
Izzard complained again. The food bank initiated a third-party investigation. It found nothing to corroborate the allegation of sexual assault against the male staffer.
Izzard also went to the RCMP. It investigated, but no charges were laid. As well, Izzard went to WorkSafe BC. It ordered the food bank to update its harassment definitions, investigation procedures, and staff training programs.
We're very aware of the mandates and the definitions of what harassment is, especially in this post-Me Too climate.
According to legal experts, sexual harassment continues to be one of the most common complaints received by workplace regulators.
Harassers are often looking for plausible deniability. They engage in conduct that they can then turn around and say was misinterpreted, was not intended to be received in the way that it was, and that's very, very common.
Current staff at the food bank remain concerned about the man.
It's like he doesn't care. He even made a joke about it to me. He made a joke about
himself being accused of sexual harassment to me while at work.
Izard says she's not looking for compensation from the food bank.
I just want them to acknowledge that it happened and that they handled it poorly.
It's the only way she says she feels confident what happened to her won't happen to others. Belle Puri, CBC News, Surrey.
A petition has been started and protest signs are out in the village of Pemberton. Many in that community are rallying to try to save the only bank that's set to close this summer. As Susanna Da Silva reports, residents say the area's unique demographics and geography make the bank an essential service.
The numbers here are small because of COVID, but the frustration is widespread.
I've been dealing with them for 42 years. That's going to affect me.
Last week, the Scotiabank, which has been here for over 60 years, posted signs saying the branch will be closing in July, telling customers to use its Whistler location.
I commute to Whistler 2 days a week, and I have 30 minutes on a good day, hour and 45 on a normal winter day sometimes, depending on skier traffic, car accidents.
And many say it simply isn't an option for seniors and elders in the community who also don't bank online.
I feel so bad because it's so important for me and to the senior to have a bank in this town.
And even for those who want to do their banking virtually, poor internet makes it difficult, especially in some of the remote local First Nations communities. And in July, COVID will still be a concern.
I think people don't want to leave their homes any more than they have to, and I think that you're adding, really unnecessary risk when going to a place like Whistler that is very heavy with tourists.
A statement from the bank's head office in Toronto says they did not take the decision to close this branch lightly and that they understand it will have an impact on the community here in Pemberton, but that they felt it will allow them to provide better service for customers in Whistler and in Pemberton.
The only other option for people will be to become members at the nearby credit union. But some local businesses worry those who do head to Whistler may spend in Whistler.
Yeah, so there are a significant number of people that come to the bank on a regular basis on payday. They get their check, they get it cashed, and they walk out of the bank with a fistful of dollars and they just start basically spending that cash directly right here in our town.
An online petition to save the bank has over 2,000 signatures, with letters now being sent from the local Chamber of Commerce and Village Council to Scotiabank headquarters. They all say they know their odds aren't good, but they have to try. Susanna Da Silva, CBC News, Pemberton.
Students across the province wore black shirts today to raise awareness about racism in Canada. Black Shirt Day hasn't received official designation from our province yet, but that didn't stop many schools from taking part. As John Hernandez reports, a pair of elementary schoolers say it's never too early to learn.
For the past week, grade 7ers Jaden Henwood and Jacqueline Long gave their schoolmates some important history lessons. Each day they profiled historic Black community members over the school announcements.
We started off on the first day talking about George Floyd on the announcements and introducing what we're going to do throughout the whole week.
A list that also included Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr., the project leading up to Black Shirt Day.
Black Shirt Day, at its crux, it's a push to get, at the very least, a day of mandatory curriculum on Black history in BC schools, hopefully schools across Canada, and then as well to spread awareness about, how to be anti-racist.
Kamika Williams is among those who spearheaded the campaign, citing her own experience in BC schools, where she says she learned little about Black history.
Black people and people of color in general, in North America, all over the world, are facing so many systemic racism from so many different facets.
More than 10,000 people have signed an online petition calling for Black Shirt Day to be officially recognized across BC. And while it hasn't been proclaimed by the Ministry of Education yet, that didn't stop many schools from participating.
Black Shirt Day in Burnaby schools, it's really been, it was really driven from the school level and especially with students. And I think it's really a great opportunity for them to share their voices and their own lived experiences.
The magnitude of mass protests across the world not lost on these students who say education and racial awareness can help drive change.
I think that they should learn younger because as they grow up, they can look into it more and like get more educated as they grow old. Plus, they can be like more proud of themselves, and they can embrace their culture and their race and know that it's okay. It's not just today. Today's a symbol, but it's September to June. It's all year round in the schools, and we're going to continue this conversation.
A conversation had by youth today with big dreams of a better tomorrow. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Another 9 people have died from COVID-19 in BC. The province's death toll now stands at 1,047. Another 509 new cases are confirmed today. BC's total case count has now passed 60,000. Hospitalizations are down to 349. 68 of those patients are in critical or intensive care. Just over 4,600 people currently have COVID-19 in our province, and more than 7,100 people are under active public health monitoring. Nearly 76,000 people have received a COVID-19 vaccine in BC, but there will be fewer vaccinations in the coming weeks as Pfizer is delivering 25,000 fewer doses. Slowdown due to a planned upgrade of Pfizer's production facilities.
It's not going to have, I don't think, long-term effect. In fact, Pfizer's doing this to assure the long-term, as I understand what their justification is and what their idea is. I mean, we're still expecting 2.6 million doses of Pfizer and Moderna in the second quarter, April, May, June, and 6 million in the third quarter, July, August, September. So in terms of our planning and the huge infrastructure we have to put in place to address this, this doesn't change that.
And some encouraging news tonight from the hard-hit Fraser Health region, where cases are coming down. A doctor in the community is crediting, in part, behind-the-scenes volunteer work for the drop, work he hopes can help other communities as they face COVID-19 spikes.
We're made up of physicians and also other professionals, lawyers, media strategists, and also a lot of volunteers, a lot of students. None of us are getting paid for this. We're all doing it on our own time. And what we're doing is we're trying to address it in a few different ways. So there's an education piece, which is putting out material that is culturally relevant, using traditional and newer media strategies, TikTok, Instagram.
And a vaccine update from Fraser Health today. It says all 151 of its long-term care and assisted living facilities have now received the first dose of the vaccine. It says by end of day today, all residents and staff in those facilities will have received a first dose of Pfizer or Moderna. And the next step is figuring out how and when the second part of the vaccine will arrive and be administered for staff and students. Well, after a controversial trip to Hawaii, the head of UBC's School of Public Health has resigned. Dr. Peter Berman originally apologized for taking the vacation during a time when officials advised against non-essential travel, calling it something he deeply regrets. But nearly 24 faculty members of UBC's School of Population and Public Health signed a letter admonishing his decision, a decision he says has caused a divide in the community. In a statement, Dr. Berman says the controversy has made it impossible for me to continue to provide effective leadership to grow and develop our school. He remains a UBC faculty member. People receiving palliative care at the Irene Thomas Hospice in Ladner may suffer some disruptions over the upcoming weeks and months following a disagreement with the province.
We asked them to take it over because that would be the most seamless solution. That isn't going forward, so we're going to have to deal with that after the contract ends on February 25th.
The province is ending the service agreement with the Delta Hospice Society, which runs the facility, and withdrawing funding after the Society's board voted to stop offering medically assisted death. The 10-bed hospice has since opted to close and lay off its staff instead of allowing Fraser Health to take over operations.
We are committed to making sure that the hospice that was built by the community, from donations from the community on land owned by the community and owned by Fraser Health, is a hospice that's running again, up and running again.
While the facility continues not to allow medically assisted death, the Ministry of Health says it will be opening 10 hospice beds at the nearby Mountain View Manor. It says residents currently residing at Irene Thomas Hospice will continue to stay at the facility and receive the care they need. Well, many parts of the country are seeing an alarming increase in COVID-19 cases, and the road toward ramping up vaccination is now expected to get more bumpy. But that's not the worst of it. As David Cochrane reports, public health officials are urging everyone to help reduce the spread as new modeling data paints a bleak picture.
A country desperate to speed up its vaccinations has just been told to slow down.
Deliveries to all countries receiving Pfizer doses made at the European facility will be temporarily reduced. This includes Canada.
Those reductions the result of work to expand production at this Pfizer plant in Belgium. Long term, it means a boost in global supply. Short term, it means Canada and the European Union will get smaller than expected shipments. For Canada, shipments will be temporarily cut in half.
Pfizer has confirmed that Canada's deliveries will be impacted for the next 4 weeks. We will see an average reduction over this time frame of 50% of expected deliveries.
So vaccine deliveries are throttling down as the rate of infection is speeding up, moving further and faster across the country, with outbreaks in long-term care now exceeding the horrors of last spring.
We are forecast to have 10,000 cases daily by the end of January, with increasing hospitalizations and deaths expected to continue to follow the rising case numbers.
The rising cases seemingly fueled by holiday gatherings.
Many provinces, including those that had been on a downward trajectory, like BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, saw a sharp rise in daily case numbers after the holidays.
The interruption of the vaccine supply is a clear setback, but the hope is that it's only temporary. Deliveries should still ramp up significantly in the spring, and the target is still to vaccinate everyone by September. David Cochrane, CBC News, Ottawa.
All right, the weekend is here. Amy Bell is here with the forecast. Thankfully, it's the weekend, right?
That was a long week.
Yeah, they're all long weeks.
Long year so far.
Exactly. How are we looking?
Good. Today was gorgeous. We can't complain about that. We started off with some clouds early on, and then it cleared right up. So we saw lots of blue sky for the second half of the day, and temperatures were mild, up to about 11 degrees, 12 degrees in a few areas. So not quite as warm for the next several days. And early next week, we'll start to see those temperatures overnight, especially really getting low. But we will see some unsettled weather for the weekend. We'll stay dry tonight. That is the main thing. And we will stay dry for the most part tomorrow. I think timing-wise, it's actually going to work out because we'll see the rain really arriving for us here on the South Coast in the overnight hours. But some showers are possible tomorrow, early evening. You can see that's it's like a bit of a monster of a system. It is going to bring a lot of precipitation to the North Coast and Vancouver Island starting tomorrow, and then it makes its way over to the rest of the province. And of course, for the interior and northern parts of the province, we will see snow and for those mountain passes as well. But for us, it's just going to be a bit wet for Sunday, and then we do brighten up for Monday. And then, Monday is when we start to see those temperatures getting really low in the overnight hours. So we'll keep an eye on that Arctic air for the rest of next week, and I'll have a full forecast for the province coming up in just a bit.
Thanks, Amy. See you in a bit. The lawyer for one of 4 former Mounties responsible for the death of Robert Jukanski at YVR in 2007 says he now has settled a lawsuit. Kwesi Millington sued Canada's Attorney General and the province of BC 2 years ago, claiming RCMP negligence, among other things. His lawyer wouldn't share details, but confirms a settlement has been reached. Millington was convicted of perjury for his testimony at the inquiry into Jukanski's death. He was sentenced to 30 months in prison. His lawyer says the RCMP has provided Millington with a letter of support in application for a pardon. Robert Jukanski died after he was tasered at YVR after officers responded to reports of a man throwing furniture. And a reminder, you can also watch our newscasts live on CBC Gem, CBC Vancouver, also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Well, more and more variants of COVID-19 are popping up. The one from the UK and South Africa you might already know about. Now there's one from Brazil. The unknowns about that one next. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. A Calgary doctor is offering an inside look at some of the people directly affected by the pandemic. Dr. Heather Patterson works at the Foothills Hospital and was granted special permission to take pictures in both the COVID ward and emergency room. The CBC met with her to look at the photos and to talk about the powerful stories behind them.
So as an emergency physician, I carry with me certain stories that will never leave me. And I was presented with the opportunity to photograph broadly across the hospital, to share our stories with the public and also with the people and the patients who are involved in the photography as well. This particular picture is special. What's happening is that the patient has come in and is requiring intubation. And one of our lovely nurses is holding his hand and reassuring him about the process that he's about to undergo. I feel like I'm learning something every time I go in and shoot. I've learned to recognize what people are doing outside of my immediate periphery. For example, the physician that you see in the image is an internal medicine specialist, and she's in the room explaining to an elderly woman that her COVID pneumonia is worsening. And as I watched this scenario unfold, I watched our physician not only kneel down and spend time with this patient, but she also provided the care of 3 other people. She brought in her food, she helped her with her oral care. She made sure she was comfortable and spent quite a protracted amount of time really filling in the gaps where people aren't able to visit their loved ones. This project has reminded me to take the time to ensure that our patients feel cared for, not just medically, but as a human. I had the real privilege of photographing this gentleman, and he unfortunately was someone who was going to require intubation. And this is in the moments before that procedure took place, and our nurse and our medical staff were in the room connecting with him again, answering his questions, reassuring him. And I think it really demonstrates how connected we feel to our patients and how much we hope for their recovery. We're in a global pandemic, and this is an opportunity to historically document what we're experiencing. But perhaps more importantly, these people who allow me to photograph them allow me to see their most vulnerable times. I really want to offer the people and the patients who are involved in this project the opportunity to be validated in their experience, to tell the true story of what they're going through. One of the things that I hope to highlight is that there are so many people involved in this response, and I want to include all of our members of the team, our leadership team, people who are in food services and laundry and linens and our housekeeping. They do these enormously important jobs as well in our organization and make it possible for us to do our jobs. And I think that the opportunity has really broadened my perspective of how people experience our healthcare system.
There is growing concern tonight about variants of the virus. One, first detected in the UK, is responsible for at least 23 cases in Canada. Another, seen in South Africa, has been detected in 2 cases here so far. And now, Christine Birak explains officials are watching for a 3rd variant spreading fast in Brazil.
A new variant of this virus is emerging in Brazil, as COVID-19 patients there are already dying of suffocation. It's not a game, she says. Where is the oxygen for the hospitals?
There's pressure on this virus to change. The more it circulates, the more opportunities it has to change.
The World Health Organization held an emergency meeting saying countries are now in a race with a virus that continues to mutate.
The virus has been energized by the ability to evolve and become better and fitter and better adapted to infecting us.
3 variants, first identified in the UK, South Africa, and Brazil, are now stalking the globe. In the UK, scientists identified mutations in the spike protein that appear to have made it more contagious. Variants first seen in South Africa and Brazil also involve tiny mutations on that spike, changes that could make it harder for your antibodies to recognize the virus and destroy it, even if you've been infected before.
We don't have, I think, sufficient data yet to say unequivocally these are variants that are able to get around our immune system, but they may be able to modify or lessen the response for our immune system.
A possible case of reinfection has been identified in Brazil. Britain's already restricting flights from South America. Canada is considering it.
Our measures have been very strong, but we're always open to strengthening them as necessary.
So far, Canadian labs have identified fewer than 30 variant cases, but some aren't linked to travel, and scientists are concerned.
I fear that what we see, right now is just the tip of the iceberg.
The advice from Canada's health minister?
Please keep asking yourself, do I absolutely need to go out today? Can I reduce the number of times that I am going out?
She adds public health measures can still defeat these new variants, but they have to be followed. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
A group that advocates for migrant farm workers is raising concerns about a new federal travel rule. It requires people entering Canada by air to have proof of a negative COVID-19 test. As Tamina Aziz reports, the group is highlighting the cost and risks for migrant workers to get tested in their own countries.
In a letter to the federal government, Justice for Migrant Workers raises concerns about the country's new COVID-19 testing policy. The group says some workers may have to pay up to $350 for a test and travel long distances to get tested. Using public transportation, they're further exposed to the virus.
So workers, whatever savings they have, they may have to borrow from family or friends. The burden's on them, which is not acceptable, right? These workers who are putting food on our table should not be put under this unnecessary burden to continue to work, especially if we have not taken any steps to protect their well-being while they're in Canada.
He says migrant workers live in poor conditions here. Ramzaroop says they're often overcrowded in their communal housing. Migrant workers have been among the hardest hit groups during the pandemic. Nearly 2,000 workers contracted the virus across the country so far. 3 died from it. Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu called it a national disgrace. The general manager of the Ontario Greenhouse Vegetable Grower says the government decision may have been rushed.
I understand the government's wish to have this done, but a lot of things can happen on the way to the airport, at the airport, and so on and so forth, right? So it is one additional measure.
He says greenhouse workers have good accommodations and they make sure their health and well-being is maintained. The federal government sent an email statement to CBC News. In part, it reads, "At this time, temporary foreign workers are subject to the same requirements as all travelers to Canada. This means that, unless they are exempted, they will be required to meet the new requirement regarding testing. We will continue to work with workers, employers, partner countries, and stakeholders to ensure the temporary foreign worker program's success alongside this new requirement." Ramzaroop says living and working conditions for migrant workers hasn't changed. He says it's important for the community to put pressure on the government and amplify the voices of workers. Tamina Aziz, CBC News, Windsor.
A bold pledge from the U.S. president-elect today. Joe Biden is vowing 100 million Americans will be vaccinated in his first 100 days in office. Tonight, at least 128,000 Americans are in hospital, with the number of deaths today at least 3,700. The situation so dire in California, it's sending refrigerated trailers to serve as temporary morgues. As Stephen D'Souza shows us, they can't arrive quickly enough.
Inside, the Cypress Lawn Funeral Home is full of COVID-19 victims, while outside, 2 refrigeration containers await more.
Right now we're seeing 4, 5, 6 times the number of families that have COVID-19 on their death certificate.
California is still among the hardest hit states. Inside this emergency room in rural Apple Valley, ICU beds are full. COVID-19 patients line the hallways.
I've been doing this now 13 years. I've probably seen more deaths in this last month than I have almost in my whole career.
The stress on frontline workers is balanced for some by a newfound sense of purpose, as EMTs in California help administer the vaccine.
In the last 2 days, I've just seen a complete shift in our morale, where it was down and they were exhausted, but being able to help people and get this vaccine has really turned their spirits around.
Incoming President Joe Biden says more help is on the way. In his first major move, he proposed a $1.9 trillion aid package, with billions to increase vaccine supply.
Mobilize more medical teams to get the shots in people's arms.
increase supply, and get it out the door as soon as possible.
But it's an uphill battle. This week, the Trump administration promised to release all second doses it said it was stockpiling. Turns out, the supply was already exhausted.
I have been frustrated at times beyond belief, but this one is so far beyond the pale to be almost unimaginable. And I'm going to call it. Where did they go? Who's going to be prosecuted for this?
With New York City among those warning their vaccine supply will run out next week, the president-elect had a sober warning.
The honest truth is this: things will get worse before they get better.
So while sites like Dodger Stadium and the parking lot at Disneyland turned into mass vaccination sites, what Biden called a dark winter is far from over. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
Also of concern, the potential for more violence leading up to Joe Biden's inauguration. He says he feels safe, but Facebook is blocking events posted near political buildings, and officials are securing D.C. landmarks and state capitals. As Susan Ormiston tells us, more ugly details are still emerging about last week's rampage on Capitol Hill.
He's called the QAnon shaman, and prosecutors in his case first alleged he and others were bent on hurting lawmakers. An alleged note left in the Senate at Mike Pence's desk says it's only a matter of time. Justice is coming. But the Justice Department now says there isn't hard evidence yet of any planned capture and kill plot. The House Speaker wants a sweeping inquiry.
There is strong interest in the Congress in a 9/11 type commission.
Pelosi described her disgust at hate-filled rioters, like this man shown with his odious T-shirt.
To see this punk with that shirt on and his anti-Semitism that he has bragged about, to be part of a white supremacist raid on this Capitol.
As the horror of January 6th continues to shake the Capitol, D.C. Metro Police shared chilling detail.
I remember guys were stripping me of my gear, and then some guys started getting a hold of my gun, and they were screaming out, kill him with his own gun.
Officer Daniel Hodges was caught in a door in a vice-like squeeze.
There was a guy ripping my mask off, and he was able to rip away my baton and beat me with it, and he was practically foaming at the mouth. So just these people were true believers in the worst way.
Blocks of Washington's core are now closed to vehicles, making working in the downtown area a vexing challenge. Deliveries are an exercise in logistics, navigating barricades with long walks between entry points. More National Guardsmen are arriving this weekend. Domestic terror, including IEDs, considered the #1 threat to the inauguration. This is only a first perimeter, with multiple more security rings before the White House at the far end of this road. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Washington.
Allegations of forced labor in the disposable glove industry overseas, in countries where we are getting personal protective equipment. A CBC Marketplace investigation is coming next.
The lights burn bright and late in Jim Taylor's office these nights. Taylor, one of the sports world's favorite columnists, is writing the final chapters of a book that will probably be a big winner. It's the authorized biography of the great Wayne Gretzky, and Gretzky is always a winner. The book is being told in the first person by Wayne's dad, Walter. J. Paul McConnell was out at the Coliseum on Wednesday and asked Wayne about the book.
Well, basically, there's been a lot things written about Wayne Gretzky and a lot of things written about my family, and basically this is our way to write about us properly and write the true facts, and I'm sure that the book's going to do very well, and I think people will enjoy it.
What kind of stories will be in it, do you think?
Well, we'll have to wait and see and read the book before we let that out, but I've read parts of it as much as that is done in the book, and I think people are really going to enjoy it.
Jim Taylor's authored 2 other sports-related books over the last 10 years, but neither had the potential of this one. Jackson Davies interrupted Taylor's tight work schedule yesterday to ask him how he feels about the Gretzky family and Brantford's most famous son.
They are a very positive family, Jackson. There's no. I said warts and all. That's one of the things that I insisted on. I said we're not going to do a Wayne at Sunnybrook Farm thing, and but mostly it's just a good story. It's a funny story, and it's about the whole family, not just Wayne. You see, it really isn't a Wayne Gretzky biography. It's a Gretzky family biography, but naturally Wayne is the focal point because so much of the reason it's being written is what Wayne's done.
Where does the book start?
In a manger. No, actually, it starts in Brantford on the farm when Wayne first started at age 2. Well, actually, I lie. Actually, it starts on Nelson Skalbania's jet plane when he's just flying into Vancouver, out of Vancouver, to having just become a rich kid, and is writing his own contract on his knee on a piece of foolscap paper because his father, Nelson's dictating it, and Wayne's father's too nervous to hold a pencil.
Where does the book end?
Well,
or is it a little early to ask?
It ends with one chapter by Wayne. The last chapter is called "And Now a Few Words from '99," which is about Wayne's thoughts on a few things. Now, Wayne is really screwing us up at the moment because we have a chapter written called "A Year Like You Wouldn't Believe," which is about the record year, 2 years ago when he trashed all those records. And now he's trashing them again. Or could.
Yeah.
So everything's got to be on hold.
A look at some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Then he came to a different area of the warehouse and started rubbing my back and touching me and saying, like, oh, I'm just drawing pictures on your back. And I was like, leave me alone.
A former employee of the Surrey Food Bank is speaking out. Janica Izzard says management has done nothing to protect female staff after she was sexually harassed and allegedly assaulted by a male co-worker. Izzard took her complaint to Surrey RCMP, who interviewed the male employee and then closed the case. The Food Bank Society's president says independent third party determined Izzard's complaint lacked credibility and that her complaint should be dismissed.
She sent a photo to her boyfriend of her on the top of St. Mark's, so it was on her way down that she'd lost her way.
A tragic end to the search for an Ontario woman missing on the North Shore Mountains. RCMP say the 21-year-old's body was discovered in a steep drainage below St. Mark's summit. Identified as Nikki Donnelly on social media, she apparently lost her way on the way down from the summit. BC health officials are reporting 9 more deaths and 509 new cases of COVID-19 tonight. Hospitalizations are dropping, with 349 people in hospital, 68 of those patients in intensive care. Meanwhile, Pfizer is temporarily reducing shipments of its vaccine to Canada in order to expand manufacturing capacity at a facility in Belgium. That means fewer shipments of the vaccine until at least March. BC's cabinet ministers have spent the day reviewing options to potentially restrict travelers from elsewhere in Canada. It comes as parts of our province see a steady stream of visitors who aren't supposed to be here, with travel advisories in effect. Our Tanya Fletcher looks at the concerns and the potential options to try to stop them from coming.
Crowds like this are what you'd expect to see during the winter in Whistler. But where the crowds are coming from is a point of growing frustration for locals.
I asked them, like, directly, are you guys visiting? And yeah, for 10 days. And then he answered me that in Quebec, there's more cases than BC, so we are better here.
Within BC itself, people are asked not to travel outside their region, meaning even people from Vancouver aren't supposed to go to Whistler. But that hasn't stopped out-of-towners from showing up and, according to one doctor, filling up the local medical clinic.
The majority were from the lower mainland. And then surprising and worrying was a lot of people from out of province, mainly Ontario and Quebec.
The evidence is in the parking lots, license plates giving away the identities of travelers from other provinces. It stirred up louder calls for keeping other Canadians out, and the Premier is now looking at ways to do so.
And so legal advice is what we've sought, and we'll take a look at it over the next couple of days.
Seeking legal opinion is new, but his attempts to address the problem are not. John Horgan put this at the feet of the federal government in the fall, but formally restricting inter-provincial travel was essentially dismissed over concerns that it violates the charter rights of Canadians. However, the East Coast managed to isolate itself early in the pandemic. The Atlantic provinces individually and at one point collectively sealed themselves off, only allowing travelers who agreed to quarantine for 14 days first. But health experts say replicating and enforcing that on the West Coast would be much more challenging given the province's larger population and the sheer size of its border with Alberta. It's still not clear what specific legal avenues BC is exploring, but whatever is decided, the Premier plans to make an announcement next week and finally put the issue to rest. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
People are using personal protective gear, PPE, like never before during the pandemic. But where do we get it from? A CBC Marketplace investigation reveals allegations of forced labor in the disposable glove industry overseas, and promise to protect their identities because they are afraid of losing their jobs or even risking their lives. Asha Tomlinson reports.
The PPE business is booming, but there's a dark side to glove manufacturing overseas. After speaking with nearly 24 migrant workers in Malaysia, we've learned of outrageous recruitment fees, excessive overtime, unsanitary dorms, even violence. This whistleblower worked at Top Glove, the world's biggest glove manufacturer. He says he tried to speak up about his heavy workload and hot conditions.
After I complained, he beat me a lot. He hit me with the helmet 2-3 times every day.
Another insider secretly records this video and says COVID protocols are not being enforced.
We are doing COVID tests because many people in the company are infected.
A massive outbreak halted some production late last year. Nearly 6,000 workers were infected. One worker died. Andy Hall is a labor activist.
The industry remains a hotbed of systemic forced labor and modern slavery.
We found products linked to Top Glove inside some Canadian hospitals and doctors' offices, including Dr. Nadia Alam's practice.
Oh my God. What they are doing makes such a profound difference, what they are doing makes such a profound difference in my life and my ability to take care of people. And it makes me mad that nobody's taking care of them.
The U.S. government recently banned some of these products, but Canada hasn't done much. We asked Minister of Procurement, Anita Anand, why the government isn't doing more.
We are working with our suppliers to investigate these allegations.
Top Glove tells us that they don't tolerate violence or harassment, and they have a hotline to report abuse with whistleblower protection. They also say they're improving their living and working conditions. Asha Tomlinson, CBC News, Toronto.
And for Marketplace's full investigation into the truth about your life-saving PPE, tune in tonight at 8 o'clock. It's a way to save some cash buying food that's nearing its expiry date, but why a cost savings is becoming a necessity for some. That's next. And at 6:43, live look at downtown Vancouver tonight. Another nice January day on the coast. Could there be more of the good stuff for the weekend? Amy Bell has the forecast coming next.
I've seen a lot of negative connotations on Twitter and Facebook about people coming home, but they have no idea how, alone you can be, not seeing your family for 11 months, only by video phone or thing. So it was amazing. It was surreal. Hi, my name is Tom Kennedy, originally from Bay Bulls, Newfoundland. and living in Nunavut for the last 12 months. I am currently just back from a Christmas vacation in Ottawa, quarantining for 2 full weeks before I go back to Iqaluit. The first couple of days I was there, I actually felt like a guest in my own house, if that makes any sense, because I was self-isolating downstairs, and it wasn't until after 2 weeks that I got to actually interact with everybody. So very excited about that. Hadn't seen my family for almost 11 months up to that point. When I moved to Iqaluit to work, it certainly was, I didn't think I was going to be stuck in Iqaluit for a full 11 months because of COVID. I actually went to Iqaluit probably about 3 weeks before the pandemic shut everything down in the country. A lot of provinces didn't allow people to come back for Christmas. I was extremely lucky, very fortunate. I almost felt guilty when I left Iqaluit on December 4th, and I had to say goodbye to my friends, and almost every one of them were like, you don't realize how lucky you are.
I just didn't want to leave. I don't know when I was going to be able to come back again.
What does it feel like now that you're back and you're living with all those restrictions again?
It's back to reality, like a slap across the face again. Hi, I'm Shelley. I work in Alberta. I have a house, a child, and husband in Newfoundland. I used to travel home to my son and my husband once a month, but since the pandemic started, I can only get home because I have to quarantine for 2 weeks. I can only get home twice a year because I have to take so much time off of work.
What was it like for you coming from a place where there are so many more cases of COVID, where you live with so many more restrictions?
It's like a different world. It's like a different world altogether. I mean, I even went and got my hair done because I can't get my hair done up here in Fort McMurray. Everything is shut down flat up here. It's nice to have that human interaction because up here I have one other person I'm allowed to communicate with. I can go shake a hand or get a hug from. But down there I had many. I had family, I had friends over. It was absolutely amazing. My son is only 10 years old, so it's hard on him with mommy not being around. Today is actually his birthday, and I just get there. Enjoy every minute you have down there. Spend as much time as you can with your loved ones. Don't take a minute for granted.
I would say cherish every moment, do not take it for granted, and be vigilant and cherish every second you have.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates.
Rebate.
Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
Dozens of people are dead after a strong earthquake in Indonesia. More than 600 people were injured in the 6.2 magnitude quake on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi. The quake, along with dozens of aftershocks, set off landslides, damaged bridges, and cut electricity to the region. Heavy rain was also making it harder for people to find shelter. Reports say at least 300 homes and buildings have been damaged, including a hospital and 2 hotels. Amy Bell in for Johanna Wagstaff tonight. The weekend has finally arrived.
We made it.
We made it. Some decent weather, maybe?
Yeah, we ended the week in style. We had lots of sunshine today after a bit of morning cloud, and yesterday was lovely too. So that's not too bad, especially for January 15th. This day last year, we were covered with snow, so much different scene. We are, of course, going to see things returning to slightly more normal weather, and that means wet. Not until tomorrow night, though, so it will stay dry tonight, and then for tomorrow, we will see this next system. It's going to be approaching, hitting the north coast, and then Vancouver Island first, and then it'll make its way over to us and gradually bring the wet weather and then some snow into the interior and the southern half of the province, or the northern half of the province, sorry. But for us, it's just going to be a little bit wet. And then we'll see things changing next week as we get into some much cooler air coming down from the north. But you can see that band there as it gets into the higher elevations, transitions to snow. So that'll mean a bit dodgy for some of those mountain passes if you're traveling around the province. For us, though, it is just going to be wet. And I think timing-wise, we are going to see the majority of that precipitation overnight tomorrow. So we'll see some showers kicking up in the evening, and then we will see rain overnight and early Sunday morning, and then it will just taper to showers. By Monday, though, we get back into the sunshine, so that's great news. But as you can see, a very wet day for Vancouver Island, but still mild. We'll see those temperatures around 7 degrees up in Comox, 3 degrees in Whistler with rain in the village, but there will be snow up on the mountain. And we're looking at a nice dry but slightly cloudier day for the Fraser Valley, and we're going to see that for many areas. For Kamloops, mainly cloudy with a high of 2. Prince Rupert, you are very wet. Just a risk of some flurries for Dease Lake and just some flurries for Prince George and Williams Lake. Kelowna and Cranbrook dealing with mainly sunny conditions and temperatures just above 1 degree. And then for the 5-day forecast, as I mentioned, tomorrow the rain arrives overnight, and then we look at sunshine. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we're looking at sunshine and cooler temperatures.
All right, we'll take it. Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Well, many Canadians are turning to mobile apps to save on groceries during the pandemic. Some offer steep discounts on food nearing its expiry date. But as Philippe de Montagnier reports tonight, what started as a way to divert food waste from landfills has turned into a necessity for many.
Astrid Moulin picks up a curry dish she ordered on feedback. The app allows users to buy meals from Toronto restaurants at a discount. Excess food that would otherwise be destined for the trash can.
Like people like me, we really went to this app to avoid wasting and to help the community. But now I think with everything happening, people are like really focused on saving money.
Other apps like Flash Food help grocery stores sell items nearing their best before date for a fraction of the price. The company's CEO says demand for his online marketplace has soared during the pandemic.
It's a difficult time for a lot of people, right? There's been some people that have been laid off. Some people are looking at their mortgage or any of the bills that they have, and they're looking at where can they cut costs. And usually food is the first area that you try to shave costs on.
Over the past year, Flash Food surpassed 3 million downloads in Canada. Competitor Food Hero, available in Quebec and New Brunswick, says its use jumped too, and food sales through the app climbed by 36%.
With the pandemic and the financial crisis that it created, a lot more people obviously and unfortunately are looking for ways to save on food.
Contributing to the app's increased use in 2020, rising food prices, and the large number of people working from home.
People have more time to look for deals, and so they go online or they use these apps in order to save a bit of money. And we are expecting 2021 to be another challenging year for consumers as well.
Industry analysts say the average family could be paying nearly $700 more on groceries this year, adding even more pressure on the 1 in 7 Canadians already facing food insecurity. Philippe de Montagnier, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, move over Nova Scotia duck tolling retriever. There's a new dog in town. Coming up, what makes the Beaver so special?
Hi, my name is Sophia Rathjen. I'm in grade 8 and I go to Sherwood Heights. This is the first 39 books of 134 that I purchased through a $2,000 grant through Strathcona County. And my goal with this was to increase Black, Indigenous, and people of color representation in literacy.
How did you feel when you found out you were going to get that grant?
Oh my gosh, I was so excited. I almost cried. Just knowing that this was actually going to be happening. I saw a lack of representation in my school library, and I saw the way that it affected outside of the library. And so I noticed, for me personally, I experienced a lot of microaggressions, and I know people who had experienced blatant racism from people at our school, and so I just thought about how I could change that. So books are either a window into someone else's perspective and experiences, or a mirror of your own. All people of color can see their stories represented authentically and unapologetically, and written by authors who understand those experiences. And also so that non-people of color can understand as well things that we go through, and that way it's not always our job to explain everything and why something is hurtful or racist. To be able to see other people get as excited about books as I am has been really amazing to see.
There's been attempts to kind of get this going for about 10 years.
The idea for an ice wall kind of spurred out of some conversations that happened way back in the fall. The ice wall in Edmonton to make it more accessible for Edmontonians. And so there was a lot of moving parts and a lot of hours to make it happen. And it's actually really cool to see it now turning into a reality. So we set up a mesh to set the basis for the ice and then spray a misted water at it. It was late nights making ice throughout the night rather than during the day, and it was a bit of a trial and error process for us this year.
Close enough to the mountains that there's still a large mountain community that commutes to the mountains, so kind of a good way for people to do the thing they love and train, or to get into the sport if you're brand new to it.
Part of what we're trying to do at the Edmonton Ski Club is offer accessible recreation within our inner city, within the River Valley.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Never miss out on a CBC contest, special series, or information. Make sure you sign up to our e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver Inbox. And CBC Vancouver is a proud sponsor of the Digital Inclusion of Isolated Mothers in Canada Conference, January 19th to the 20th. Join BC Today host Michelle Elliott on day 2 of the conference. Learn more at mothersmattercentre.ca.
For the first time in its history, the National Football League will have a Muslim head coach.
Yeah, the New York Jets today announcing the hiring of Robert Saleh, who is of Lebanese descent. Saleh's former team, the San Francisco 49ers, are going to get compensation as part of the league's effort to reward teams for developing minority coaches and executives. Saleh's hire means there will now be 4 active minority coaches in the 32-team league. Long overdue. Okay, time now for a new take on a great Canadian winter tradition.
It's windy and icy. Sail boggin!
Yeah, you heard that right. Sail boggin, part toboggan, part sailboard, with a little danger thrown in for good measure. Ryan Doka in Regina came up with this one. He used garbage bags, to harness the powerful wind gusts in a major blizzard that hit Regina this week.
Gusts were as high as 126 kilometers per hour, a record for January in the city.
Yeah, what could go wrong there?
Sounds like a great idea.
Okay, you've likely heard of Yorkies and Wiener dogs, but a Biva? Well, the Terriers are the newest breed of dog to get the thumbs up from the American Kennel Club.
The pocket-sized pooches can now compete in the biggest U.S. shows, including the popular Westminster Dog Show. Our colleagues in Alberta spoke to a breeder in Stony Plain with what the deal is with the Biva.
A Biva is a Yorkshire Terrier that has isolated the tricolored gene to create the 3 colored dogs that you see in front of you. The long-haired, playful little puppies that you see. They were created in 1984. Now that we have the recognition of the American Kennel Club. We are a thing, and they are actual dogs. These guys, they just love everyone. So their personality, their intelligence, their trainability, it's a massive draw. So these little babies are 6 weeks old, almost 7 weeks. Their names are Elantra and Eclipse. Our goal is to have these dogs going to families where they can sustain them even after going back to work. Make sure you're ready for a lifetime commitment. These are a long-living dog. They live 15 to 17 years of age. Be prepared for a whole lot of love.
And just to be clear, Amy, they are, as she said, actual dogs.
In fact, that was a real dog.
Yeah, it's a real dog. Well, they are kind of cute.
They're adorable. I'm ready for a lifetime of love from something that cute.
The Biva, fully endorsed now. So
Yes.
it's all legit. Fantastic. All right, we're out of time. Thanks for joining us tonight. Just a reminder, you can always find our newscasts online at cbc.ca/BC. Our next local news right here at 11 with Dan Burrett after the National.